If you're anything like me, it is absolutely terrifying that it is November, because now there are only 2 months left in the year. Or maybe you're watching this and it's June or March or something. But either way, time is moving so quickly. My name is Michaela and I am in law school, and as of late, I've been feeling like my life is just hurtling towards the end, which sounds very dramatic. I know it sounds very dramatic, but with every passing year, it seems to blur a little bit more. And I'm in my 20s right now, and I'm sure it just gets worse and worse the older you get, because with every passing year, 1 year is a smaller portion of your life. It gets to be a smaller and smaller piece of the pie. The society that we're living in is exacerbating that fast-paced life. I think that it puts slow living in jeopardy, and every single technological advancement that we have also contributes to that. So in such a globalized, technologically dominant society, how are we meant to slow down our lives at the same time? And also, just a little disclaimer, and this goes for a lot of my videos too, I think that it can glamorize my life a bit. If I make a video with a whole list like this, it almost implies that I'm doing everything on this list. There's no humanly way that I could do everything on this list right here. I don't want to give that unrealistic impression that I'm setting like this really high standard, because I don't think that's fair to give that off. And just based on comments and everything, I don't want people to assume that I'm able to do everything here. I try, I really want to, and I try and I do as many things as possible on this list, but I'm not perfect. But the goal here is to do as much as we can to make our lives seem a little bit slower. And when I say slower, I mean not only just taking our time more, but helping carve out each day a little bit differently so that it really sticks in our memory, and that way it doesn't become this fleeting moment that we can't recall because it just blurs into this one big amorphous mass of repetition every single day. But what can we do? First of all, I think that we have to use as a reference point, how did things work differently when we were kids? When you're a kid, everything seems to go by a lot more slowly. Of course, as I mentioned before, 1 year is a very different amount. You know, like when you're 10, it's 1/10 of your life. But also there's something else that contributes to it as well, and that's wonder. It's taking in your environment and appreciating it and noticing it. And I think that we do that less and less because obviously we are familiar with our environment as adults. Psychologically speaking, when you make a memory, it's got to be something that stays in your mind. I don't know psychology, by the way. I took like one intro to psych class. You know, things lodge in your memory better when it's not something you've already done 1,000 times. You've got to make every day different as much as possible. But how can we do that, and how can we actually slow down? I just have a really long list right here. I think the number one way is, of course, removing technology, and I have another video on that, so I'm not going to go in depth on how to remove technology from your life because that's just a whole other separate issue. But I'll link it here, getting off your phone, that kind of thing. That's the number one thing. To have slower living, I think you have to be more involved in your community. I think you have to have more of a local mindset, and it's good to be globally aware. Of course it is, and it's definitely good to be aware of current events going on globally, and to also show support and to be driven by humanitarian ideals. That's so important just for cognizance. But at the same time, you have to limit yourself. On occasion, only look at your local news, only buy things from local vendors and farmers markets, that kind of thing. Because globalization, of course, it's number one, driving climate change. But second of all, I think that there's this immense pressure on us when we're thinking about the whole world. As humans, we are wired after thousands and thousands of years to take care of our communities, and never before have we had to have the stress of the world on our shoulders. So I think that one way you can have a slower living is to not be burdening yourself with 1,000 things you need to think about that are going on around the world. And again, I'm not saying like bury your head in the sand. Absolutely, I'm not saying that. But I think that you just have to take out time for yourself where you're just thinking about your community. The more local you are, the more interactions you have. And the more interactions you have, the more enriched your life is. And you'll just, by dint of that, you'll feel more in the present and more grounded than if everything you're living through is online Amazon, online, current events, online communications. Localizing yourself where you live is the best way to be more in the present. This was a really long one. If you're able to, unless you have a job that requires you to work odd hours, to really follow your circadian rhythm and daylight, that's also just connecting again with human biology. And the more that technology has us staying awake at odd hours, we have electricity now. For so long we didn't have electricity, and our bodies are not designed to be awake in the dark usually. And again, like if you have a job and that's not possible, that's a totally different story. But if you're able to get more onto your natural clock, I think that that's a really good way to stay in the present and just to have that grounded feeling. It's really a grounding thing to wake with the sun and to relax as the sun goes down, it's a really great way to ground yourself and your mental health. Do handwritten letters. If you get a gift from someone, not typing out a text or giving a phone call, but actually writing a handmade thank you card is a really great way to slow down and to think about gratitude. Also, just sending letters in general. It also forces us to think about what we want to say. When you're texting, you're firing off words really quickly. When you're writing, you have to actually take the time to think, what am I going to say right here? You can't delete it. I mean, you can erase. But erasing takes more effort than deleting, so we're more intentional with our words, and that's why anything handwritten is going to make your life feel slower than if you're typing it. And that's why I'd also recommend, not just letters to people, handwritten everything. Handwrite your journal. Listen to music without skipping songs. It's so funny because 20 years ago this would have been really absurd advice, but these days we live in a world where we control our music, and I do this all the time where I'll go skip, 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 and it's this dopamine hit that we're craving to hear that right song. We're so impatient. I think we lose pleasure in music when we're seeking out only that one song and not just appreciating music for the sake of music. So listen to the radio and don't skip. It's a really great exercise in just appreciating what you have around you and appreciating what's available. Get a landline. So I saw this online on TikTok, but get a landline, which is a really great way to help keep yourself away from your phone. So if you search online, you can get a device that connects your mobile phone to your landline, and that way when you have a call come through, you can pick up on the landline. That's one of the biggest hurdles for a lot of people, is they want to unplug, but they have to be near their phones because, what if their kids call? What if their mother calls and there's an emergency? And if you have it connected to a landline, you don't have to go to your phone unnecessarily, and you can still receive and pick up those calls. Scrapbook. Oh my gosh. These days we rely entirely on the iCloud. Personally, I have this implicit distrust. If we ever were to just undergo this technological disaster, I have this fear that I will lose all the photos I have. So I'm kind of trying to save up money so that eventually I can print out all my photos. It's something I really want to do, and I try to save photos as much as possible. But I'd really recommend printing out your photos. It's a great way to slow down your living because then you're intentionally looking at photos you want to keep. That's another thing I've been talking about recently with some of my friends. When we go to take photos, we're so accustomed to the phone version of a camera that we go click, 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 and get 7 photos of one, the same shot, the same sunset, whatever. This is the same thing as with music, where we're looking for that dopamine hit and we don't have any deliberation, we don't have any intention in it. And I think that it'll make you feel like you're living a slower life if you do everything more deliberately. If you take that photo really angling the way you're taking it with your phone and thinking, okay, here's the lighting I want, and then subsequently going through and choosing what photos do I want to print out. And even better, put them in a scrapbook. That's a really great way to slow down your life, is to get stickers and paper and cut things out and really crafting something with your memories, forging memories, to make it meaningful and not just having hundreds of the same photos stored in this abstract, I don't even know what the iCloud is. Why do we run out of storage if it's not tangible? I will never understand that. But anyway, start your day slowly. If you can, give yourself an extra 20 minutes even. Wake up 20 minutes earlier than you need to in order to get to work on time. And that way you can sit in bed, not on a phone, but just reading or listening to music, whatever it is you do, start your day slowly, and I think it'll get you off on the right foot. Take up an art. I think everyone should have a form of art in their life. It doesn't matter if you're the STEMiest person there is, STEM Simpson, that's all you do. There is an art for you. I fully believe that. Whether it's knitting, gardening, painting, drawing, dancing, yoga. Those are all art forms in their own way, and expressing creativity and thinking about the world in a different way is a really great way to slow down your life, because it's the opposite of robotic motions and going through the motions. You're having to be really careful about what you're doing. And that's kind of becoming a common theme of this video as well. Deliberation. If you do everything on autopilot, that's what's going to make time feel quick. The more that you put effort into something and the more you do something intentionally, the slower it's going to feel. Don't rely on ChatGPT for things that you've always done by hand or yourself. And the reason I say this is because these days we have an epidemic of people relying on ChatGPT now for grocery lists, budgets, sending emails to others, birthday messages, Instagram captions, all these things that we used to think of ourselves, we're having AI do it. What is the point of having a brain if we're not using it? And I'm so disturbed by how many people are using ChatGPT as part of their routine rather than something to turn to when you need real help. I think that, and this is the thing, is I'm not saying ChatGPT is bad. There are so many ways it can be really helpful with work research, progress, and developments, and thinking through something. But when we turn to it automatically, when we turn to it without trying to put in the thought ourselves, that's where it becomes a problem, because we're going to become reliant on it. And that's another way that your life is going to be more on autopilot. You're not going to do any of the work yourself, and you're just going to be going through this repetitive motion of not thinking through your day, not thinking what you're doing, and it is going to blur and time is going to move more quickly. I really think this is all connected. Technology and the way our lives feel fast and stressful, it is all connected. Sorry, I feel really passionately about this. I apologize if I'm coming off a bit aggressively here. But the next one is to grow plants, because it's a long-term project and it brings photosynthesis into your home. If you have any sunlight at all, I don't have plants in here because I get like 30 minutes of sunlight between 6:30 and 7:30 a.m. and I'm afraid that the plants would die. But if you can, keep plants. Keep a gratitude journal. And the reason I say gratitude journal and not just journal is because I think a lot of people fall out of the habit of journaling because it's hard to think of what to write. Like you open up a journal and it's like, what am I supposed to write about right here? And it's daunting as well. But a gratitude journal is really 1 to 3 sentences a day. You just write down something that you're grateful for that day. Number 1, it's less daunting, as I just said. Number 2, it forces you to think about your day and what was special about that day that you're grateful for. The more that you reflect on your day, the more you'll remember it, and the more you remember it, the slower time will feel. Learn new things. Oh my gosh, this is so important. As I mentioned before, this is why when you're a kid, things feel so much slower, because you're learning so much every single day. So take a class. If you're living in a city, it's so easy to take a class because there are so many available. If you're not living in a city, take an online class. There are a lot of free ones through Coursera. There's another site as well that offers free classes, and they have really some good offerings as well. Treat it like a school class. Hold yourself accountable. Really take in and absorb the information. It's a great way to have new input. Find wonder in what you do. Don't forget to find beauty in the fact that the leaves are changing, like the fact that they all change at the same time. That's so cool. Even in technology as well, find wonder. Like I am still so amazed when I take a video of something that this little piece of metal, my little metal phone, can see something happen and it can play back through pixels. Like what? It's so crazy. And I think the more that we have wonder in our lives, the more that we'll enjoy each day, and that will also really help you have slow living. Don't feel like you have to be constantly entertained. Oh my gosh, this one's really important. This goes with the dopamine. We always feel like we need to be entertained. I do this when I'm eating, because when I'm eating, I always have to be reading a book. It's like, why do I need that entertainment? Why do I have to be reading as I'm eating? I don't know. When I go for a walk, I often have earbuds in to listen to a podcast. Part of that's because I want to learn French, but part of it is because sometimes it gets boring when you're walking and you don't have anyone to walk with. But the important thing is you have to take time in your life to not be constantly entertained. It's so valuable to be bored. It forces your brain to take in your surroundings and observe your surroundings. It's really helpful. Make something from scratch. That's a really great way to make your life slower. Don't rely on Campbell's soup, microwavable vegetable medley, pre-made salads, pre-made cookies. A lot of things we eat in our lives, it's made pre-made or, easy to whip up for convenience, which is great. Like, definitely use these when you are busy and you don't have the time to make something. Having food is better than not having any because you don't have time. But if you have all day, if you have all evening ahead of you and you have the time, it's really cathartic to chop up vegetables and to use your own seasonings and spices and think, what ingredients do I want in this meal? And as I mentioned before with the gratitude journal, I think that the more we appreciate and have wonder in what we see and do each day, the more that we can that day has value, long-term value. That's all I have to say on slow living. If you enjoyed this video, please like it or leave a comment or subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. I'm very grateful for every single one of you. It really means so much. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.